Hi, Luke, come on.
Thank you, Chair. Hi. My question's for the Minister to start with, if possible, and it returns to some of the earlier themes because I'm particularly keen about prevention. We've talked a lot about dealing with people who start to have problems, but prevention is so important. You've mentioned this distinction between mental well-being and mental health. Could you clarify what you meant by that?
Sure. So, well, I made a distinction actually between well-being and mental illness. And the fact that we're not talking about mental illness anymore, and that is, you know, that they are people who suffer, who really need services, who have their conditions sometimes for all of their life, not always. You know, we do have people who've suffered from schizophrenia who after a number of years never have a reoccurrence and live a normal life. But mental illness is something that we're not talking about. Well-being is something that, I'm just trying to give you an example where I think we are situational. There's situational weaponising of emotions which we would regard as everyday situations that we would normally draw upon our own resilience to come through. So I can only give you an example. Somebody spoke to me who his divorce from his wife, did not have the children for Christmas, told me that really affected his mental health. I asked why. He said because he was angry. And even though it was his turn next year, that was part of their separation agreement. So he was using the situation that had happened to him over Christmas to describe it as a mental health situation, when in fact what it was he was angry and he was upset and he was annoyed. But by the time he came to talk to me about it, he was completely out the other side and he was fine.
So is it fair to say on that basis then, because my interpretation would be that every one of us has problems with our mental well-being. Stress comes along, exams, lockdown, you know, losing your job, all these kind of things. But not everyone has mental health. Yeah. I draw a parallel then in terms of what we do in, say, for example, obesity. We have an obesity strategy that looks at it as a public health issue first. Not everyone is fat, but everyone could get fat if they carried on not exercising and became overweight. What do you think the merits of turning mental well-being into a public health issue in the same vein as obesity would change to allow everyone suffers with their mental well-being, the stress and strain of everyday living? How do you think that would work as a policy?
So I think Public Health England have already taken this on board by the introduction of the Every Mind Matters website and the new Every Mind Young People's website, and the fact that we've had millions of hits on there where people have used it and used the tools to help. But you're absolutely right. No, so you're taking me on to a slightly bigger point, and a bit of a bugbear of mine is that I don't think mental well-being should sit within the Department of Health. There, I've said it. I think it's cross-governmental. I think it belongs to DCMS as well. I think it belongs to the Department of Work and Pensions. And of course it belongs in health too, and it belongs in education. And one of the good things from the pandemic is I found it easier to get other departments to engage on this. But well-being is well-being. And, you know, across government and PH and Public Health England, I've forgotten what the new name is now, we can take well-being as an issue in educating people on, because we've almost talked the nation into believing they've got mental health problems, when in fact what they may have is just a low level of anxiety, because as you've just quite rightly said, people lose jobs, move home, we lose people die, people, you know, we suffer from grief. All of these things are not to go into the category of mental health, because when we talk about all of those things under the category of mental health, we don't talk about mental illness. We don't talk about the 20-year-old woman with bipolar who's suffering, who we should be educating people on. We don't talk about learning disabilities and autism and other things.
Can I interject there? Because I think
Luke, come on in. Yes.
You're right, and I think that you've hinted at joining the departments. You've mentioned education, that we've heard that, so I'm not going to go around there. You mentioned DCMS. Now, I have a personal interest on this side. To what extent do you think the online world has an influence on eating disorders, anxiety, depression, and self-harm?
Huge. So, you know, I'm aware of. I saw recently a supermodel who had given birth 48 hours previously, sat in a bikini by a swimming pool. That was not her body. That was absolutely a touched up, enhance, whatever they do to photographs, that was it. And I just couldn't help think that, you know, any pregnant woman or about to give birth woman who's looking at social media accounts, at Instagram, who sees that will believe that that's what she should be looking at 48 hours after she has a baby or gives birth. And I think the impact for young women particularly, I know there is no evidence to prove the causal link yet, and I know that work is going on, and there's a huge amount of research going on into this, and I don't think you can blame social media per se, but I think it would be absolutely naive to say that there is no link between the eating disorder crisis that we have and we saw happening before the pandemic even struck. Not a crisis at that time, but certainly we saw the uptick and the escalation. It would be naive to say that there is no causal link between the number of people young people using Instagram and other social media accounts, looking at these perfect body images and believing that that's what their body should look like.
Thank you.
So on that basis, would we take, is the department advocating a precautionary principle here and stepping in on the basis that it looks reasonable to make it, to draw some policy lines on this? Or is it wait for the hard evidence, but there could be a problem stored up down the road?
Well, DCMS are, as you know, the online harm bill is about to come before Parliament very soon, and I hope you will have had more discussions than me, I believe. I hope that there will be some lines, some movement towards recognising this within the online harm bill. I don't know. And this is what I mean when I say that I don't believe that mental well-being is just a Department of Health issue. I think it's a cross-governmental issue. And I think all policies that we look at...
We got that loud and clear. Luke, any final point from you?
No, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.